Most advisors don't have a time problem. They have an allocation problem because if you're spending 30 to 40% of your week doing work someone else should be doing, growth becomes harder than it needs to be. In this clip, Mike and I will break down one of the biggest hidden causes of overwhelm inside advisory businesses. You had made a comment about some of your clients have this repetitive theme of overwhelm was the word I believe you used. And I
Correct.
see that too with a bunch of coaching clients and being reactive. And it's really interesting that, doing a similar job and we're working with groups that are very dynamic and unique, we're both hearing very similar things. Talk to me more about what you're hearing from your coaching clients about what does overwhelm mean to them and what are you seeing?
Yeah, what I'm seeing right now, Jason, is a consistent theme when working with high performing groups in our industry is that the word overwhelming or stressed or busy, if you want to use that term, comes up a lot for me when I'm asking questions about utilization of time by advisors, their support team as well. And when we get down to the root of it, a lot of it has to do with how the team is allocating and utilizing their time in a very efficient and effective way. And looking at all the different roles within the organizations, the different team members, and getting different perspectives of where their time is being spent, it's hard to measure for most teams. They're working with so many different types of clientele across the board, a lot of different types of services that are being provided, but we're also trying to get to some form of an understanding of, well, how are we serving our clients? Where is that time being spent? Is it being spent with what we would consider to be ideal? Is it being spent with more maybe potential customers or those that aren't necessarily like the best fit for the advisory group? So these are just common themes that come up a lot when I start engaging with firms and I'm trying to get a sense of where they feel they're at right now. So I'm sure you're kind of getting the same kind of responses from your groups as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. What I find a lot with the groups that I'm working with is when you talk about where are people spending time, one of the bigger things usually comes with, well, what are the clear roles and responsibilities? And I know that
Hmm.
sounds fundamental, but a lot of times in advisory practice, you may have been working with somebody for several years and the advisor's kind of working in their silo and doing their duties and tasks, and the operations team's doing the same, but there's not a lot of collaborative effort of, well, what is the left hand telling the right hand to do, right? And so
Hmm.
I find that a lot of times we're finding a lot of crossover. We have advisors who traditionally should be doing what they do best, and that's meet with clients or finding new clients. But
Right.
in reality, they're typically spending sometimes 30 to 40% of their week in administrative and operations tasks. And to me, that seems to be an anchor on their time right there. I don't know. Do you see the same thing or what are you hearing?
I see the same thing on a very consistent basis. And it doesn't
Yeah.
even matter literally the size of the team. I mean, it could be a group with one or two advisors, one or two support staff, or a group of 5 to 7 advisors and 10 support staff. And
Yeah.
across the board, it's just an overwhelming response of there's just not enough time in the day for us to be able to focus on all these different things that we're trying to accomplish. And it's interesting when I really get into it with most groups is that the feedback is very different sometimes from the advisors versus the actual support staff. And I always kind of look for just responses from people, like just kind of looking at their just body language, because advisors will be like, well, you know what, Mike? For me, these varying segments, if you want to call them that, of our clientele, a lot of them don't really tend to take up a whole lot of my time. But then when I question the support team, I go, what's your feedback on that? And they're like, completely different. A lot of our time is being spent with all these different types of people. We just tend to buffer a lot of the advisors from a whole heck of a lot of that. So
That's true.
that kind of, yeah, it's kind of interesting to me because, again, that's kind of common with most groups. And that's where we really need to evaluate that. And the whole open and honest communication, team
Yeah.
meetings, talking through all of that is so important.